So I'm going to show you how to clone, and this will work on a remote machine or a local machine as long as you've got the soft Workbench server installed on the remote. I'm just going to do this locally. We're going to open a project that I've already got in AI Workbench and just run a tiny piece of it. Maybe, I don't know, we'll find out. So in this case, what I want to do is I have this COVID vaccination. It tracked COVID vaccinations by percentage across a couple of years during the pandemic. And what I'd like to be able to do is create a project from this, right? Or load it into AI Workbench, and I'm going to do it locally. So if we're going to do that, it turns out we need to know the URL for this. It works with GitHub and GitLab, and you don't do the .git thing. You just put this here. And what I'm going to do is come here and say, hey, I'd like to create a new project. And man, how did I do that? I think what I do is I close this one. So I had a running container out there. Actually, I could have left this running. Why did I do that? That was dumb. So, well, you know what? I'm going to cancel that. So that got me back to here, right? And what I'd like to do is create this project. So what I'm going to say is I'm going to clone this project from Git. And what's interesting here, I'm on a Windows machine, but you can see it's like /home/workbench /NVIDIA Workbench. So I'm going to show you what that does in a minute. Basically what happens, you know what, I'm going to show you right now. Basically what happens here is I'm using the web interface on here. When you install this on Windows 11, it actually installs an all of NVIDIA Workbench's real work happens in a Linux WSL instance. I can't remember what system it's on. And so anything you see me typing in that other window is actually going to happen here, and it's going to be in the /home directory Workbench, because that's actually the user ID Workbench uses when it runs remote on the WSL instance, or I don't know what it uses on the server remote on the Linux. I'll have to look. So if we come back over here, right, what I'm going to do is load in this project, and now it's going to ask, that's weird. Oh. And because I was already configured, it knew what container to build, okay? So the container's already been built. It's using a container I used earlier. I probably should have purged that. It basically would have worked the same way if I had done, you know, new project, foo, or fru. And then I would have picked this. So I've already done that one time. We didn't have to do that again. I'm going to go back to this Python project. So this build is done. The container's already built because I already built it once. And then if I open this in Jupyter Lab, it's actually going to open a browser to that Workbench via. Actually, what it does is it spins up a container just to run this copy. So all the copies of Workbench are run isolated in their own container. And so we're now talking to a desktop Docker container, managed container on the Windows machine. And all of this was actually configured using the local app that talked to the NVIDIA Workbench VM and WSL instance, which is really a VM, right? And so this project is set up like all of theirs. It turns out I can actually load this, and you see I get the normal Jupyter notebook and pretty much everything here. I can suck down the data I need or run all this, run the notebook, that kind of thing, right? And I apologize for being out of bounds just a little bit there. And so we can go back here. So that's it, right? So I had a project, I cloned it down, and I'm going to do another talk, a separate talk on how to do the clone, how to make one of these projects. Like if you already have a project, you want to convert it to a Workbench project or make it available in Workbench, you can do that. Anyway, that's it. Any changes I make, so this is on the Windows machine, any changes that we make in this Jupyter notebook, which is actually happening out on this Workbench VM, right? So what's actually happening here is we're going to run this container. It's totally isolated and with everything that's installed in it, but actually it looks to me like it does a file mount from this guy. And we can prove that. So I can actually go out, so this NVIDIA Workbench, right, is actually coughing up the file system for this desktop, for this Docker image that we're actually doing the Jupyter notebook in. So I really should be able to just hop into that image. It's WSL and it is called NVIDIA Workspace. So I'm going to go here and just say WSL-D NVIDIA Workspace. Okay. And so 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 now if I CD, it actually came in on my home directory from the Windows machine. This is actually the NVIDIA Workbench is the place, PWD, and Workbench is the user we're in, and you can see that by the prompt. And then I can go to CD NVIDIA Workbench, and you can look, and oh man, that was dumb. You can see the two projects. One was my project that I did in another video, and you can see this COVID. And what it did is it prefixed the directory project name with the GitHub repo owner. So in my case, it's Freemansoft is the owner, and the project was COVID vaccinations Python. And if we list ls Freeman, but you can see these are all the files that's in the Workbench. So that's really all there is to it. We went in the NVIDIA Workbench UI and created a new project from a clone, right? So if I went back here, I could say clone a project. That's all I did. And I'm going to do a different talk that talks about what changes I needed to make. I had kind of this just notebook with the requirements.txt, and then I wanted to make it work. The other cool thing with this, so if I wanted to, I actually could switch. I don't think my server's up. Nope, that's the demo got a heck right there. So I'll bring that up and do the remote one. But basically, whatever I do in here, I can do on a remote server too, using the exact same thing. And here we are back in the same project, right? I restarted that. I don't know what the auto Z means. So that's it. And that is how you clone a project from Git into AI Workbench. And then if you need to, you can hop onto the box into the WSL instance. Like if you wanted to not use their Git interface, which I'm not super excited about sometimes, because it doesn't show me the files actually that are going to change. If I only want to change some of the files in the repo and push it, or create a branch or do any of that, I can do it from here. Have a great day.